going to be discussing with you guys. We will be talking about the Texas flooding situation up in Kerrville. We are going to enter that discussion about what happened at the Essence Festival. And finally, we're going to talk about Carnival Cruise Line changing their policies. So with me today, we have again Chris Dawkins and Caleb Alexander. And we have a special guest today, Chris Herring. Welcome.
All right.
You got it done.
Got it done. This situation in Kerrville, in fact, I'm going to put a semicolon on that. We have flooding in about 6 or 7 states right now.
Right.
And they're not getting the coverage that Kerrville is getting. Maybe because I don't know whether Kerrville was the first location that suffered because the weather system was awry. But the situation is bad either way. Some people want to say, want to make it about race. I can't make this about race because flooding is drowning is to me the worst thing that can happen. I've jumped in lakes and stuff, and don't think that I don't think about that on a swim, that I may get panic and drown. So there's all kind of questions. In fact, first of all, you know that black folks are being blamed for this flooding.
No, never heard that.
Yeah. Charlie Kirk saying because of DEI, this happened. And we already know that DEI is code word for black folks.
I don't know how you say that because it was the Trump administration that fired all the people from NOAA. So whether you were hired through DEI or not, you still got fired, right? You know what I mean? So there's nobody there.
So
they dismantled the agency.
Well, you can't explain it. You can't explain stupidity.
Yeah, that is dumb.
And then the other issue was, I saw a video, I don't know whether you sent me the video or my sister sent me the video of a woman in this region before the flooding hit, saying that they don't want to accept Biden's money because he had already earmarked like $10 million for them to set up an alert system along that pathway of that river, especially around the campground. They said that we don't want that money because it's devil money. Okay? So,
they want it now.
So, and now we've got, well, at last count, 161 people dead. So, to me, it's a tragic all the way around. It's a tragic anytime there's flooding anywhere around the country or anywhere. So, what are you guys' thoughts on this one?
My thoughts. So no, I mean, I think Texas is being covered because of just the death toll, and because you had children at a camp involved. And that's always going to be a major story. And so I think that's why I see people who are politicizing this to a different level. So yeah, there is a conversation to be had about NOAA. There is a conversation to be had about the alert system that was dismantled. All those are legitimate conversations to be had. Some people are saying, talking about the administration and how when it's California wildfires, you should sweep the ground or rake the leaves or whatever it is. Whereas in Texas, aid comes immediately, president's on the ground. So they're trying to make political points off of this tragedy. Some people say when it's, I've heard multiple things. When it's a shooting, you know what I mean? And well, now it's not the time to discuss it. You know what I mean? Whereas in this case, where it's another tragedy with mass casualties, mass loss of life. Oh, now it is the time to discuss it. You know what I mean? So people are making a lot of hay about it. I don't think that in this instance it should be political. I don't think you should make political hay on this because it was a tragedy. Children lost their lives. Yes, we can have that debate about National Weather Services later. But again, I don't think it's a race base. The coverage or the difference in coverage is just it's tragic. So those are my thoughts on it. Initially. So
what do you think?
Kind of like with Caleb, I do feel that there's a time to have the race and political discussion about this. I think there is something to that. but because of those kids that are involved and the different things like that, we've got a lot of time to be able to discuss that. And now, as you said, is not the time to actually do that, in my mind.
I think in the state of Texas, the thing that I do see that's happening is that the governor did say that they're going to extend session. So session will be extended starting in the 21st of July, I believe.
21st.
And with that being said, there is a conversation about redistricting or changing the district footprints of some of these areas so that that makes it political. But, you know, again, our hearts and our prayers go out to all those who have suffered, because loss of life is not something that anyone would ever want to experience, and it doesn't matter the color of a person's skin. We just know that, you know, this is a tragedy that we would hope that we would get the same compassion if it was in areas in which we lived. But our hearts go out to Kerrville.
Now, I'm going to get some kudos. First of all, there were 2 Latino teenage girls who risked their lives and rescued 20 girls.
Wow.
But you don't hear anything about that. Then Mexico, the president has sent in their I'm gonna call it a team who specialize in searches to help out. And so we've seen that happen with California, when Canada sent down their aerial team to help put out the fires, and now we're seeing Mexico saying, forget what's going on, we're going to go help. So I really want to, give kudos to that. There's been a lot of hero stories that we just don't hear about, but I really wanted to mention those 2 girls because, we might have heard their stories differently. They could have been picked up and deported, but they risked their lives entering that water and saved 20 girls.
And if I can just say that I was extremely proud of Texas Representative Josie Garcia. She put on her military hat back on, and she actually started to recall those veterans that were in Military City, USA to go up to help.
I keep forgetting she's a veteran.
Yeah, and she put on that military hat and she wore it, and we did see some posts recently where they were looking for some lost children who have been identified and found, and have brought some form of peace to the families to know that their loved one.
I didn't see that, so hats off to Josie Garcia.
Yeah, no, she's doing the work, and that's why, since we're giving shout outs.
But let me say this, we need to talk about FEMA and where FEMA is missing. First of all, do any of you know who the head of FEMA is?
Well, we know one thing.
What?
He doesn't even know there's a hurricane season.
But do they? I don't even think they have a head of FEMA.
Yeah, they got one, but he doesn't.
do,
But he don't know anything about. He's clueless.
They got a
incompetent.
deputy. They don't have
No,
somebody.
they have a head of FEMA who's completely incompetent.
Okay.
Yeah, and like I said, and like Doctor said, hurricane season's coming, and of course we're gonna have tornado season. We're gonna be ripping through Oklahoma and North Texas and everywhere, Kansas, and just the amount of cuts that they made, that Doge made to FEMA, it's
So let me say this. I think this is a failed experiment with the Trump administration in trying to run the country as if you're running a business. Okay? You're trying to cut everything, trying to cut your expenses and do all of that. You can't run a government like that. When we have these type of big catastrophes that we're having and that we've seen lately in not only Texas but different states that have had, you need the help of the federal government to be able to come in, because number one, the states don't have the money to be able to do it, and you need that particular type of disaster help that you can have. But what's unfortunate is, for whether you're white or black, and in this case with Kerrville and Fredericksburg, Texas, it's predominantly white, and they're not even being covered. And to me, you've got some homes that are been destroyed. You can't get flood insurance. And so what happens to these people? Do they just lose everything they have because, we got this guy as president or whatever? There needs to be something else that happens. So I just wanted to say that I don't think that it's right. and I think it's a failed experiment, and I think that we have to try to figure out how we're going to do better. Even Trump said he'd never seen a disaster like this before.
I mean, yeah, it's flooding all over the country right now, and yeah, there is a debate to be had about the cuts and what to cut and where to cut. You know what I mean? And we've saw it, broad cuts all across the board, multiple agencies, the USAID. You know what I mean? It's you don't think about those kind of things,
Right.
Until it's time to think
Right.
about those kind of things.
Right.
And so
Right.
I don't think we're going to think about the effectiveness of USAID until Ebola shows up in New York, and then we'll start thinking, well, why did we cut USAID?
Right.
Yeah, so we definitely need to revisit some of those cuts and budget allocations that were passed with this big, beautiful bill.
I think that both of you gentlemen are optimistic, but I don't think that the reflection of where America is going has anything to do with an experiment. I think that America is going in the direction that America wants to go, and it may be very insensitive to a degree, but I believe that there are some people that will actually even sell out their own families in order to advance, and I think that you are seeing some of the more selfish motives operating, and you know what? In 2 weeks, there'll be a whole different headline, and these things that we're talking about today
Right.
won't even be.
But Chris,
an
I don't
issue.
disagree with what you're saying. What I'm saying is that those people who elected this particular administration, they elected it under the premise that this guy runs a business and he's successful and he can do this and make this. If he
You
can,
know,
And those
Success-
same people who elected that person into office
Right.
have doubled down, and they still are just as adamant that they made the best decision ever.
Okay.
And so that is what I'm saying. It's
and that's what I call the failed experiment.
And see, success could be an illusion.
Well, nobody wants to admit when they're wrong. And that's part of the issue.
Right.
You know what I mean? We elected this guy, and no matter what dumb stuff he does, they
Right.
double down. He's a stable genius. So he's playing
Superman.
ten-dimensional chess. Yeah. And so, no, nobody wants to admit when they made a mistake and they're wrong. So that's what we're seeing. That's why they double down. I seen somebody, I mean, they twisted themselves into a pretzel trying to justify the tragedy and his cuts. You know what I mean? And you just, I don't care how much you twist and turn and twist, you can't justify the cutting of the alert system.
and we just signed the Great Big Bill.
And we just signed it.
So that the Great Big Bill also has legs.
Right.
That none of us know what those are going to look like until we start seeing people in our families that won't have access to health care and to various things in which we know we're in the big bill's cuts.
Absolutely.
So again, it's almost like America's in this triage where we're bleeding and hemorrhaging, and I think God is also speaking, you know, and so as we start seeing how this all comes about, I think
Before we get off of this topic, when the lovely Dr. Sharon Michael Chadwell was talking about
That's me.
the kudos that she wanted to give, we may not be able to verify it, but I think it's still worth mentioning about supposedly what Kendrick Lamar did, whether or not Jasmine Crockett has a hand in this as far as helping out for relief, and Shaq and some of the other things. Now, I'm not saying that we can verify any of that, but I think it still goes to say that we're not sitting by as our stars and so forth.
Right.
You know, they need to have credit as well.
Right.
Thank
what I
you.
wanna
That's
say.
great.
Yeah, and also the other thing is too, and I know I'll probably be attacked. I don't care, but Texas is a special place. It is where whenever you have tragedies like this, communities come together.
Yeah.
That's the way it is. A lot of people outside Texas don't understand. They don't realize it, but a lot of times when you have tragedies, the communities, no matter what walk of life you come from or economic status or whatever, a lot of people in Texas, ordinary, everyday citizens of the state of Texas will come together and help their neighbors. That's the community we live in. So kudos to my fellow Texans.
All right, next topic. The Essence Festival.
Whoa.
There is a couple of folks I wish were sitting on the seat with us, but I'm not going to call any names. But when Susan Taylor wanted to put this festival together, and she is of Caribbean descent, her whole focus was to celebrate the Black experience in America via this festival. We celebrate the hair, we celebrate the clothes, we celebrate the food, we just celebrate the music, but the focus was on the Black American experience. Well, something has gone awry. Now, I buy Essence magazine, and when she left, the whole spirit of that magazine left as well, because I started seeing people's names in leadership positions whose names I couldn't even pronounce. Okay? And then it got sold. And what was happening was, it was like our culture was being erased in that magazine. Well, that same sentiment has been pronounced at this year's Essence Festival and via Stephanie Mills. And so when you look at the leadership, you've got one from, the owner is from Liberia.
The owner of Essence?
Or a Black man. He's a CEO.
Okay.
CEO or the owner. Anyway, we've got someone from Liberia, someone from Kenya, someone from Nigeria, and they're running the Essence Festival. And when you go to Essence, when you go to New Orleans, you're not running down there to buy African food.
Right.
You're going down there to go get some
Chicken.
jambalaya,
That's true, right?
you know, gumbo.
Right.
But at the festival, they have, what's that rice?
Jala.
Jala.
Chola? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, versus jambalaya. For real?
Okay.
And so a lot of the women, a lot of the men who went to this year's Essence said that the spirit wasn't there.
Wow. I went there 2 years ago and had a great experience, but I did see they had some African influence, but not to the degree that the festival changed this year. And when I saw that there was a backlash to what this Essence Festival represented, because I saw it as a cultural learning space when I went. The exhibit halls had African or Black-owned businesses. Celebrities like Thelma from Good Times was there. You know, we was having our little kikis and ha-has, and you know, the fashion, the hair products, everything there. You know, really a great cultural event. But again, I think it goes back to this thing called the foundational Black Americans don't necessarily subscribe to seeing an essence, as they call it, being tethered away from what it was purposed for, as you explained, Doctor. So I think this is where we are. There's so many different things in which, in this foundational Black American group is very strong in their advocacy. It's almost like we're seeing various groups that really are standing on the foundation that we are Black, that we are owed something, that we have to fight for it, that we have to be together, and we can't have our message watered down. And I have several friends who are a part of this movement, and they speak very loud and bold with their whole chest about the things in which they believe.
Well, let me give my disclaimer first. So my comments are my own. So when you attack, do not go after my colleagues. I love them all to death. But just to start, though, my sister, love her to death, she wrote an article about how rice was introduced into this country, right? It was brought over in their hair, a lot of seeds. So we've written articles about the foundations of Mardi Gras and where that comes from and the culture it comes from. So the idea that you can separate American heritage or African American heritage from Africa is ridiculous on its face. Our foods, our tradition, our cultures, our music, all of it traces its roots back to Africa. We have this idea that there is a separation between our experience and Africa's experience. There is no separation. It was one crime. It was one crime committed in multiple jurisdictions. It was committed here, it was committed there, it was committed in the Caribbean. There's no separation. This idea that you are somehow better or above our brothers and sisters in the Caribbean because your folks were slaves here instead of slaves there is utterly ridiculous on its face. Here's the deal, and it shows an utter lack of understanding of history. The ships stopped first on the Isle of Santo Domingo, which is Haiti and the Dominican Republic. The ships stopped first in Cuba. The ships stopped first in Barbados. The slaves were unloaded and sold first. The prime choice slaves, the big, the strong, the ones who had skills were sold first in Haiti and Cuba. The leftovers, the rejects were put back on the ships and then brought to the U.S. and sold in South Carolina and Virginia and New Orleans. So the idea that your ancestry is superior, no, your ancestry were the ones who did not sell.
Wow.
Your ancestors were the rejects. So the idea that you're better than someone else who has Caribbean heritage is ridiculous on its face and shows an utter lack of understanding of history. And so here's the deal. Every other single culture is moving towards unity and has been. That's why you have the EU. That's why you have NATO. That's why you have Chinese dominance in the Pacific. That's why you have every other people, every other race of people but us. And this group, this foundational black Americans who want to set themselves up as separate from everyone else is utterly ridiculous on its face. This is a group of people who are of the mindset that they're going to be first in line for some trinkets if they can be awarded reparations. So that's the whole purpose of setting themselves up separately. No, we're foundational. We're the descendants of freed American slaves. Because they want these trauma trinkets. They want to be first in line. Real power comes when you align yourselves with your brothers globally. That's where real power comes from.
So tell me how.
The majority of the world's population will be black before the year 2100. We are going to dominate. It will be black folks, and it's the onus is on us coming together to realize that. And to walk in power. Instead of begging for reparations, join hands with your brothers. Because right now, Africa dominates in all of the future technologies, in all of the materials that are foundational to the future technologies, from cobalt to coltan to lithium. 90% of the world's platinum, 90% of the world's phosphate, 40% of the world's gold. So instead of separating ourselves from each other, real power is if we come together and work together and realize that and walk in power. The numbers, after all the fancy weapons were expended between Ukraine and Russia, it came down to manpower. It was your buddy and your guns against his buddy and his guns. So if you have half the world's population, no one can stop that kind of manpower and that kind of unity and that kind of power. So people setting themselves up to be separate, you are nothing but a shield for white supremacy because you're continuing the system of separation. And that's what I have to say about that.
But I don't disagree with what you're saying. But my question is that how are you applying that to what happened at Essence?
Because it's the same thing. It's the same stupid divisions.
So are you saying it's okay with what happened at Essence?
Well, what I'm saying is this idea that Essence is being taken over, or this idea that it's too much Africa and not enough celebration of American culture. The foundations of African American culture lie in Africa. Like I said, it's one crime, one people, and the idea that we're separate people.
I'm gonna push back on you on that.
Go ahead.
You know, I believe exactly in what you're saying. However, when it comes to African American heritage, that's how that was started. That's how it was built, okay? I'm not discounting anything from an African heritage. I don't believe, like you've said, that it's separate. and it should be together. But these are two distinct things.
How can you celebrate African American culture without acknowledging Africa?
There's so many people though in our country that put a disclaimer that they don't know anything about Africa. They weren't born in Africa. They don't have the religion. They don't have the language. And I'm talking about people in my own family have said this to me, right? Because I started to do a deeper dive into my family tree and so forth, and so I was cautioned on one hand by those who simply said that's not us, that's not who we are,
right?
Even though I have Nigerian and so forth, but again, I think this is the division that happens in the area of how we arrive, and we know that Africa has more billionaires on the continent than what America has ever seen with our billionaire class. And we also see the raw materials of Africa, where the world is actually targeting Africa to try to take it, whether it's China, whether it's Russia, whether it's the US. And so this idea that that we're not the same people, right, it has always haunted me, but I do see a difference in treatment. And I think this is where we're getting at, whereas should the Essence Festival have been more sensitive to the culture of Essence in terms of the African American or the Black American experience?
Right.
I think that experience needs to be broad, because
what experience needs to be broad?
The entire experience, the entire history. Don't tell one part of history, because our history didn't start in the U.S. And so by cutting that off, you're denying your kids, you're denying everybody else of a long and glorious history. Because it didn't start here. We didn't start as slaves.
So maybe this is where the Essence team needs to think about now, and go back and say, okay, we may have done some things.
Because we were denied an education, and because by design, this idea of separation is by design to keep us separated. Okay, so just because somebody else's goal is to keep us separated, to keep us from coming together and keep us from rising, that doesn't have to be our goal. And so just because we didn't have the education in the beginning doesn't mean we can't go back and now educate ourselves and educate our children.
Well, I think the situation that's happened is a great thing, an opportunity for us, because it allows us to look at both cultures, okay, and to decide how we do come together. This is something that I think came to loggerhead, and it was time for that to happen. The things that that we've done here in San Antonio, I think we're really light years ahead of a lot of folks because we've been including those Africans. But at the same time, there's still a division. I've got an African friend who's saying, well, you don't respect us. You don't.
Lack of education.
Huh?
That comes from a lack of education. It doesn't matter where it comes from.
It still exists.
Yeah,
and if it still exists, we've got to break down
those walls.
Yeah, we got to figure out how to deal with each other.
If Essence is a cultural festival, its mission is to break down those walls. If you want to educate people culturally, then that's your job. Educate people culturally, and include all the diverse cultures of Blackness. Here, there, the Caribbean, South America, everywhere.
Maybe.
And so Black culture is not a monolith. We keep hearing this when it comes to Latino culture. Oh, the Latino culture is not a monolith. It's not a monolith. It's a culture. And all of it needs to be studied and included in all of its beauty. There's a big difference between a San and a Zulu and see that division. And the idea that we keep dividing ourselves is our problem.
So how would you solve this?
I do more cultural festivals, more communication, more education, more dialogue, more coming together. And let us understand.
So how do you feel about the African Americans feeling that their festival and their heritage has been hijacked? Because like Chris was talking about, he felt very good at going to that festival. I'm not so sure he would have the same experience with what they're saying happened this past July 4th, and if they would have that. Now, if they would do that differently, maybe, okay, or if they would have an international Essence Festival that may not even be handled in New Orleans, it might be handled someplace else or whatever, that's something entirely different.
It's ridiculous. I mean, Chris, it's like this. We wouldn't have rice without our ancestors bringing it over. We wouldn't have those seeds. We wouldn't have.
So I don't disagree with any of that.
There's not a separation, and we keep separating. And there's not a separation.
I'm not saying that we separate. I'm saying how do we come together? Okay, I'm saying this particular thing. Even if you talk about the education, because it's just like these women are telling me all about God. I don't want to hear about God every day. I don't want to hear about Africa all the time that I'm there when I want to see some Popeye's chicken. Okay, I don't want to see that. So
it wouldn't be Popeyes without that seasoning.
Huh?
It wouldn't be Popeyes without that seasoning, brother. And you know where that seasoning comes from, right?
Well, I think one of the things I listened to several videos, and just listening to the main leaders who were African, it sounded like they were elevating themselves, saying we are here to make it better.
And bringing their culture in to say, it's 3 hours late. Lauryn Hill didn't perform till 2:30 in the morning. And they admitted it had nothing to do with Lauryn Hill. It had to do with what they
Or Lauryn Hill.
That should have made it even more relatable, because that means we all on colored people time, right?
What they
that should have been made even more relatable.
What they said is that there is a colored people's time, but this was on African time, and some of the people were talking about that they had traveled to Africa, that this was not acceptable in America.
Yeah, I think that there's this thing that we may agree with and may disagree with. The fact is that we have bad actors on both sides. There are bad actors who are foundational Black Americans who will never give you the chance to express yourself and to learn. Just like I think there's some Africans, because I've experienced some that have more an aloof perspective, and they discount the Black American experience, especially the trauma experience through the slavery process and where we are today. I think that when we look at the socioeconomic place where we are as Black people in America, and we're at the bottom of America's net worth, I think that that's something that even Africans don't want to be associated with to a certain degree. And I think it reflects in the conversations that we have and the experiences that we have that have formed this, and I don't even call it a perfect storm, but it's a storm that I'm hoping, like Chris said, that there can be some form of a conversation. Even in San Antonio, I mean, we have a Dream Week that has created an opportunity for a lot of different San Antonians to have a lane to express themselves and to educate. But yet, because during the time of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s holiday, now I see the foundational Black Americans talk about it's a tethered type of opportunity that no Black American would have gotten the same opportunity. But there again, I know my brother who is doing it, and he's a brilliant man, and he has a love for people. And so I'm hurt when I see him being attacked because he's never demonstrated those types of attributes that other people may have experienced with other people. So I'm saying we have bad actors possibly on both sides. But
that is, and that's true. And a couple of things. The idea that you can divide yourself but celebrate Garvey, or you want to be a foundational Black American and talk about Frederick Douglass without realizing that his father was from the Caribbean. It's a lack of education. You know what I mean? And so I've had these conversations. I've sat down with my brothers from the Caribbean, brothers from Africa. One of my first learning experiences saying, hey, what do y'all really think about us over here? And I had the benefits of a wonderful conversation. He said, oh, we think you're stupid. And I said, really? I said, what? He said, because you don't take advantage of the tremendous opportunities in America. Simple. Sit down and have the conversation. What they are exposed to is by design. Their images of us, they have colors on replay. They might think you're gangbanger by design because of the way we're portrayed in the American media, and the way that they are portrayed over here for the longest. You imagine Africans, you see commercials, 30 cents a day. You see flies, and you see huts and everything. It's by design. But if you go over there, you will see major cities. And you will see beautiful homes, and you will see highways and everything else.
Yes.
But it's just how we are portrayed to each other.
That's right.
And it's by design. It's designed to keep us apart. Because if you combine our engineers and our doctors and our know-how, with those resources, the game is over.
Yeah, I think we both
It's a
need
game
each
changer.
other. I think
It's a game changer.
I think we need each other. And that's why I think it's a prime opportunity for us to be able to dialogue, because it's a prime opportunity. We need them and they need us. But there's a cultural difference between that we have to understand. And sometimes, like you said, there's bad actors, but there's a lot of people who say things about us and we say things about them. They think they're better than us or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, I think all of that is furthest from the truth. But we've got to get and boil it down to where we get to the rice and boil all the water out of it.
But one of the things too is, like Harriet said, you can't bring everybody along.
That's right.
So you have some people here who are adamant
Right.
about keeping that separation,
Okay.
who are adamant about separating themselves from African and Afro-Caribbean culture, right? So that's the issue, because you have people who are supportive, who don't understand that this divisiveness
Right.
is supportive of white supremacy.
Right.
And then finally, hot topic.
Clack, clack, clack.
That was a hot topic right there. What you mean? Y'all brought me on a show. Woo, that was hot.
Told you. So, is Carnival wrong for changing their policies?
They changed it back.
They changed it back.
Yeah, you can still have fans now on the ship.
I was there last week.
Were you?
The week before I left.
Were they doing the boots on the ground and the clack, clack,
and
clack?
clacking and everybody was, yeah, no, I don't know where that's, because I was just on the ship and the policy was not in effect on this when we were on that ship. And we
No,
were-
they said it was just recent.
Yeah.
And
So we
and
were
black
just there
folks.
2 weeks ago.
Yeah, black folks have started complaining about that because they said, "Hey, you can't have no rap music, you can't have no fans or whatever." So now what they're saying is you can have fans, but you can't bring it into the
Club.
yeah.
Right, because they were on the deck, the main deck. They were dance clapping. There was rap music blasting. And everything. You know, Carnival has a reputation. You know what I mean? Let's be honest. They call it walk under the sea. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Because of their demographic. That's just true.
And what the church's
They
chicken.
call it the church's chicken
Of the sea.
You know what I mean? But it's fun, you know what I mean? That's what makes it fun. You know what I mean? The people, the cruise directors, it's fun. You don't want to be on those stuffy Royal Caribbean and Norwegian and all that kind of crap. You know what I mean? So you want to have fun. That's the purpose of it, you know? And so some of those ships, now I ain't gonna lie, some of those ships that come out of New Orleans, you be like, yo, we need some rules. Just a few rules, but for the most part, you know, so I'll give you an example though. So every night they would kids was knocking on our door and taking off running. And so they did put in a rule effect. Hey, look, anybody that's under 18, you know, they did it that one.
Right.
Kids were running around 2 a.m. They were kicking in people's cabin doors.
Ooh.
Yeah. And guess what? They found out who the kids were because they have cameras. All white kids. A couple of them from Germany.
Wow.
No black kids.
Okay.
White kids. So they do need some rules that kind of
Aren't the drinks free?
no, hell no. You have
Oh.
a drink package,
Oh, okay.
and that drink package is like $700 something bucks, man. Because
Yeah,
every
7.
adult in the room has to. Every adult has to.
And the reason why I ask you is because they were saying, you know, I guess I'll say it this way: the brothers was bringing their flask here, you know.
Man, that's always. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Well, they were saying ain't no more of that.
They can't stop it. People buy the shampoo bottles on Amazon and or little lotion bottles and fill it with liquor and reseal it and walk right onto the ship. Bruh, when I get off the ship and I come back on the ship and they say, you know, they take you through the scanner and they say, you know, you go ahead and check in your bottles. I go right there to the other table, I check in one bottle and carry the other 4 right to the cabin. It is what it is. It's Carnival, and that's why it's Carnival. That's why it's fun, and that's why it's.
I'm glad to have your perspective.
Yeah, I mean we do it. We do it every year. We sell every year, and we'll continue to sell every year and have fun. So I think people are making making more of the rules than what they are.
Why would Carnival say that the fans create a not security problem, but it's like it's harming people.
I can see somebody hit somebody.
Well, you remember I was telling you when I went to Austin, and you
Yeah.
were there, and when they were naming off the people who won, and I wasn't mentally prepared for this because of the setting, right? Someone behind us pulled out one of them big old fans and went, pow, and I jumped. Because it sounded like a gunshot in the room.
Right.
All these politicians,
Okay.
gunshot, it made sense to me.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, if I'm on a Carnival cruise up on that top deck and they're talking about boots on the ground, you can expect that pow, pow, pow.
Yeah. No, I mean, some of those fans, the big metal, you know, you can hit somebody. I guess they try to prevent that.
Have you seen the boots on the ground, Chris?
No.
What? You ain't got the boots on the ground.
Don't say that too loud, okay, around a bunch of black
Yeah,
folks.
we might have to take
No,
your
I
car.
haven't. I'm building businesses. I ain't got time for that, but that's good.
Man, we've had a great discussion today. Well, hopefully you guys participate by putting your comments. We also want to thank our producer, Carl Booker, for putting up with us, but also for putting this show together. And with that in mind, this is Contemporary Black Voices, where we tell our story our way.
41 minutes.
Well, y'all
They ever put the
got off.
We're gonna go back and do that because